The strings of the guitar start with the number 1 on the small string here, move out through 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 to the larger strings. I like to play with a very small diameter string on this E string. I use an 8/1000th. The strings on a modern acoustic guitar are just as they are on a classical guitar. They start with this string named E. It's the 12th white key on the piano from the left. It's called E. The next one is A. Next one is D. Next one is G. Next one is B. The final one is E. The numbering goes from 1 here to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 in that order. So when you talk about strings, you can either name the string by letter or you can give it by number. The bridges of the guitar are such that most guitars are not made correctly. Body of the guitar. I like to have a string that is actually at 0 point. I don't know if you can zoom in on that to show that there is actually no movement. When I push down here, the string is clicking along the top of each of the frets and has no movement in any of these strings at this point. Most guitar makers will give some height to the groove in this slot here, and we'll talk about a little bit about how to fix a guitar that isn't quite right. This bridge at the tuning head is quite important to have at the 0 point. This bridge down by the sound hole should be no higher than allows the string not to buzz or rattle when you play it at any point along the fretboard. So nothing should rattle. It should be quite clear, but shouldn't be so high that the string is hard to push down. The straightness of the neck is very important. It cannot have any propeller twist to the neck. It has to be absolutely flat. And the way to tell if it is or not is to push down, say, at the 12th fret and down at the 1st fret, and then come down with the finger like this and push and see if there's any motion in the string. If there is, it means that the neck is bowed and has to be straightened out. In order to straighten it, modern guitars, if you reach down into the inside here, there's a nut in there. You use a little wrench called an Allen wrench. You put it into that hole of the head of the bolt and tighten it, and it will, because the rod inside starts rather at the top of the neck, moves down to the bottom of the neck, up to the top again. There's kind of a triangular shape. When you tighten it, it wants to pull the neck up. If it's up too high, naturally the neck will touch the strings on the way, and that would be an interference which you need to loosen the bolt here at the end. Classical guitars, on the other hand, are not made with such niceties, and so if the neck warps on a classical guitar, you have to actually put the neck down on a raised object like this on either side, and then a weight here with a heat lamp on it to bring the bow out of it. It takes a little bit more work to straighten out a neck like that. Okay, I've talked about the flatness of the neck. Now I'll talk about the frets themselves. Okay, frets are a very important part of guitars. Fret is a word that means to raise, and so you have these little bars going across at a very specific location, and that is the art of making guitars, is to put those frets where they belong to make the tone happen. These frets must not be worn down or raised up too high. They must be absolutely as flat as the neck is flat. And if they are not, then you have to file them down until they are flat, and typically requires a a good technician to do that. There are books you can buy on how to fix your own guitar, but what I'm talking about is how to make your guitar the easiest of all guitars to play. This guitar, which belongs to my wife Gloria, is probably the easiest guitar there is to play on earth. I made sure that it was by lowering the nut grooves down to 0 and lowering the saddle bridge down to where it's just very close to rattling. You can't play very hard on these strings. Do an electric pickup so that the sound can be easily amplified. Hardly have to touch the strings and we can get any kind of volume we want out of it. So an easy guitar is, first of all, very light strings, and by that means either 8s or 9s. That means that this string right here, this E string, is 9/1000ths or 8/1000ths, which is typical of what electric guitars play, but this is an acoustic guitar with electric strings. So it's really not all that bad, and there's a lot of religion about bronze strings and diameter of strings and all of that, but you'll find that this guitar just sounds quite wonderful, made into an easy guitar.